Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, comedy on Power Talk, streaming worldwide, anywhere in the world. Thank you so much for making us part of your day today. It is very easy to get lost in the wilderness of imaginations and lose the perspective of life. By exploring deep within ourselves by the method of meditation in any form, we arrive to fathom the ocean of life's energy present within ourselves, and at the power of cosmic intelligence, being the force of eternity and cosmic energy in the present, right here and now, and be what we want to be what we ought to be, and be what we deserve to be. Scott Law, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you for that invocation.
That was, and just for the record, I do not, everything is primary source, original content. That was from, not my guru, but a guy I looked up to and had a huge impact on a lot of people was Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And, you know, I put that in the preface of my first book because, and I wanted to ask you about this idea of meditation. He was very involved with transcendental meditation, which is something I'm not really into, but the idea of a musician, meditation, yoga is on the bandstand. So in my mind, that's your yoga. Maybe you have disciplines outside of that, but you know, when he says it's easy to get lost in the wilderness of imaginations and lose the perspective of life, I asked Scott Law, how are you, quote unquote, meditating in the time of COVID?
Wow. Well, I think for me, I'm just trying to stay focused on the music.
Right.
And I think you really hit something there, like the yoga on stage
It is.
metaphor. It's funny because they say, you call what you have to do every day, on your instrument to improve or to keep up. They call it practice. You got to practice, and like yoga or meditation, it's not just that half hour or 3 hours or whatever it is. It's the whole thing is a practice and a meditation in so much as this. When the wheels in my life start coming off in my own perception,
Sure.
I have learned to just go back and stay focused on my practice, on the music, and that tends to help, at least if it doesn't resolve anything, it at least leads towards that resolution.
I was actually talking about, because I was talking to a cat today who's tuning in, just a friend of mine, drummer, and he, you're right. You absolutely are right about the practice, the rudiments. But because I was like, this cat, Scott Law, I mean, in a regular time, probably plays anywhere from 200 to 250 live gigs a year, and some of it's maybe solo, but most of the time, you're making love on the bandstand with other people, and so that's the yoga. I mean, that's the idea of when everybody is listening, having a conversation, nobody's shouting at each other. That to me is the yoga that that to me, in this time, obviously you can get together and jam. I have friends in Tucson where I live, it's cathartic, it's all they have. But for somebody who literally, when it's like, you guys, you remind me of you're definitely not playing like jazz in the more formal sense, but your mentality on the bandstand is like it's a matter of life and death. Like you're gonna play like that, but yet you can't right now. So, how do you keep from projecting into the future of, okay, I look forward of wanting and desire, and just recognizing that just the humbling idea that communal, spiritual music, indoor music, is really one of the last things that will ever come back after COVID. And that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I tell you, I posited that
Yes.
very early.
Yes.
I have been metabolizing this concept since week one, pretty much. I mean, yeah, it's like puts you in this mode of you have to adapt, and I guess for me, I just kind of was like, all right, well, this is gonna, I'm gonna just do what I can do, and but it was a shock. It is still a shock. I am still kind of convulsing. There are days where I just am like, what?
I know,
Because
dude.
you
Dude,
know,
if somebody took the microphone, if I could not do this I've done several hundred interviews during COVID. If I didn't have this outlet, not only would I feel useless, I would be having convulsions.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's like addiction. It's like weaning your. You're like all of a sudden you got to go cold turkey on something that you're addicted to. In this case, it's music, live music with people.
yeah, yeah, and it's something where it's like your missions. It's at the core of your mission statement. Like the mission statement. Part of the core of it is to bring energy together and bring people together. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, okay, we can't do that, to the point where, and all the other things where we don't really, we're all kind of been left on our own to sort through this pool of data, and it's like everybody's, there's the official stuff. Anyway, we're all trying to navigate our own line about how we're going to do our own personal protocols for getting through this time without getting sick. And then it's like, what? And then, I mean, like, there's a part of it. I was just talking to Damien Erskine last night. We had a little, like you were saying, we had a jam in the yard last night. Had a few, we were standing 20 feet apart, and we played tunes. And, but anyway, it was, we were just saying how, man, it's like when our whole mission is to bring people together, and like, now it's like there's some little gigs being offered and popped up, and there's just a weird anxiety to it because you don't want to encourage anybody to do something that might be dangerous.
You're nailing it, and I'm telling you, and I'm just saying, I'm not. We're just talking here about the reality. I mean, here's the way I looked at it. I was on the road quite a bit the last couple of years, doing a lot of rogue journalism and checking out all the cats that I love, and still discovering new music, and just I want to be in front of Ross James and Scott Law, and I want the perspiration flying off of you guys, hitting me in the face while I leave my thinking mind. And I want to be up front and getting the natural sound, and I want to let the body dance, and I'm not in it to do it communally, but it's like, if you're going to tell me that, based on data, or, you have to stay with your group that you came with, you can interact with people that you don't know, you have to stay certain, there's no dancing. It's like,
right.
What? Wait, what? And that's the other thing that, and I mean, because, like, you're hip to my show, and thank you for your support. It's just, if nobody's going to stand up for the musicians, then I'm going to do it myself, because, dude, you guys did not get, as you are aware, you didn't get the unemployment benefits from the coronavirus stimulus package, which means that our society doesn't see a musician as a viable profession anymore. And that makes me freaking irate, because Dizzy and Miles, those guys were never millionaires, and there was some shady stuff, as it always did. It's a racket. But they were compensated. At a certain time in our history, a musician was viewed as a real profession. And the fact that you're not being helped out, because why? Well, I mean, everybody consumes music every day. Everybody listens to music every day. In fact, it's probably everybody's favorite thing to do every damn day. And it's on in every dentist office. It's on in every background when you're on hold, but they don't see it as a profession. And I think more to the point, forgetting coronavirus and forgetting the rules and regulations, I mean, how have you been able to sing for your supper? Because basically, in my mind, most younger cats, I'm a Gen Xer, but most younger cats, I mean, unless they're being dialed up and pop starred out and they can't even really perform music, musicians are honestly part of the working poor unless you have a huge tool bag or a huge bag of stuff you can do. And I'd just like you to talk about how, in a normal time, you can make a living as a road dog touring and bandstand musician.
Well, historically, for me, I sort of my year would be divided between a project or I can lead a band. I have my own, book of tunes or whatever that I can go and lead a band on a gig or a recording or something like that. I mean, this all comes and goes through the years,
Sure,
and I've
sure.
been in bands, that have made a go at it. I've lived in vans with bands and been in business and had partnerships with people. We've done that. But for me, like kind of bringing it back to what I said, it's like sometimes situations end or, things just sort of naturally unfold and you wind up in a different place. And through the years, I've been just, I'm the kind of player and I have a broad, I'm enthusiastic about a lot of different styles and, a genre. I can kind of go a lot of different.
It's all music, yeah.
It's all music,
Yeah,
right?
I did.
So, and I think when I was learning, when I was coming up, I'm older, a little, I sort of started my working life in the 80s.
Oh, dude, you were, I mean, that was actually, the 80s and 90s were relatively golden compared to this time,
Oh, yeah. And for last several years, especially since I kind of wound up playing a lot of Terrapin and really having a lot of contact with the sort of this like the generation or two below.
Great cats, all great
Yeah.
cats, man. Yeah.
Younger than me,
Sure.
and a lot of times, I mean, I'd be honest with you, I'd be like, how would I I mean, I don't know what would happen if I was starting right now. But I just scrapped it out. I just kept finding gigs.
I mean, can you explain, like what I've taught, like I'm sort of in this milieu, like you're still a Gen X, you're not like a boomer. I think you're like,
No.
you're like an older Xer, but it's like,
Yeah.
I talk to cats, like there was still like a jingle, like in New York, this is, in the city, there was still like back when there were beepers, like before cell phone, like you'd get beeped to like get called in for jingle work. There was still like jingle work going on, commercials for musicians. Like even in the 90s, there was this renaissance of music, and you had people that were stretching back the lineage, and then. Well, 9/11 happened, and it put things in a very uniform, and I don't want to paint with a broad brush because I don't have the words for it, but it became a lot more about conformity, uniformity, the bottom line, very little chance taking, basically Napster as well, taking away intellectual rights. But I mean, ultimately, I don't want to go too deep in the weeds, but was there a demarcation point when you recognized you were like, damn, things are changed forever now?
9/11 definitely was the first.
Talk about that.
That was the first one. Before that, there was this like 10-year window when, anybody you could make yourself a CD, buy a van, and you were in business. You know what I mean? Like late 80s, or before, and in the 80s, you make a cassette. And you buy a van and you hit it. And that's what we did. And after 9/11, it was really strange. I had just taken a gig to start playing with a new project with Melvin Seals called Melvin Seals Melting Pot.
Sure.
It was like a little hybrid project with some acoustic instruments as well, and he was trying to kind of lean into some different sounds than just the JGB world.
I totally dig. Yeah, I saw him with the women sing like in the late '90s, but this was more. He was just trying to grow. He was trying to get off on other stuff.
Yeah. And so anyway, it was like Melvin and I had just kind of like talked through what was happening, and we were just about to start touring when 9/11 unfolded, and I just remember like ever since that time period, like I do definitely remember that merch sales took a hit, and my merch, like my CD sales personally, just since then, it really was never what it was in before that. The society shifted, and the economics shifted, and all the other things that you're talking about, I think, just kind of point to some of the conversations that I've been reading out there about, the commodification of things. We're becoming the commodification of art and music to the point where you go on Spotify. I mean, this just blows me away how I can't figure out who played on the record, or who engineered the record.
It's a train wreck. I'm totally with you, man. It's anonymous. Outside of the leader.
Right, and so that's part of it. It's dehumanizing kind of on its face, but it's just kind of neutralizing, it's neutralizing something in the individual expression for the entire industry, and commodifying what we do, and in the end that just pushes it
I think
to margins.
The word is, it's sterilizing. I mean, there's a homogenization now. We got a lot going on here. We are in a full tilt boogie here with Scott Law. We have a game on this program called Name That Voice. I saw you do a live Instagram video the other week, and you had a deep bag of tunes. I don't expect you to know who this is, but I want you to take a listen to the content, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Okay.
On my way back from California, I stopped at their house, Earl and Louise, and I was talking about how we played in a couple of those clubs in San Francisco where you could just smell the pot in the air.
Sure.
And Earl had played in those clubs too. Was it the Avalon Ballroom, one of the big ones?
The Fillmore, yeah, all those clubs, yeah, sure.
And he said, but he didn't smoke anymore, so he couldn't check it out. And I said, well, you don't really have to smoke it. You can eat it. And in fact, I've got some brownies out in the car, and if you wanted to try it out. So I brought in 3 brownies, and I decided I'd eat one just to show him that it was cool. I mean, that it,
Yeah, right.
wasn't going to keel over. And then he ate one, and Louise decided to keep hers till later. And one point he turned to Louise and said, Louise, the color is fading in and out of a TV. And she said, but Earl, this commercial is in black and white.
Scott Law, he was talking about Earl Scruggs, but do you have any idea who that voice is?
I thought it might have been Peter for a minute, but I couldn't tell.
Peter Rowan?
Yeah, who was it?
The very close guess. That was my interview with the late, great pedal steel player Bill Keith.
Okay, that's right.
And
right.
Bill, the story, this is just the greatest. I mean, this is what, and we're talking about the trajectory of music. And, here we have a situation where he stops off in Texas on the way back to the East Coast, and he's got these pot brownies in the car, and Earl Scruggs, and, pretty rough and tumble dude. He's like, I don't smoke anymore. And Bill's like, well, you don't have to smoke. You can eat them. And he's, so he eats he eats the brownie. And at one point he looks at his wife. He's like, Luis, the color's fading in and out on the TV. She's like, Earl, it's in black and white. And see, I live for that. I mean, to me, like, I wasn't even born at this time, but it was like, it was this beautiful chaos. It was this anarchy of full immersion in music. You had Earl Scruggs. You know, there was no polarization. Chet Helms would put people in to the Avalon. Square Cats were getting dosed. It was mind blowing. And like, you know, obviously Phil was in the mix, and everybody was in the mix, and it was like a mad. And like that's all I am. So I'm not trying to preserve anything, Scott Law. I'm trying to promote so that for the future, so that my kids and future generations know how real music is made. And I just wanted you to talk about, you know, more than anything else. I mean, Bill left us, but in your mind, what are the ingredients in a live setting, not in the studio, but in a live setting where it doesn't matter what genre, that the antecedents and the ingredients that are required for you to play spiritual music? And by what that I mean, you basically leave your thinking mind, and at the end of the set, you have no idea what you played, but you feel great.
Man, you know, I mean, short of the obvious, I wish I had the exact answer to that question.
Maybe it's just maybe it's like, I mean, like the way I look at any music, like if it's going to be spiritual, you know, if I'm on tour with Scott Law, then even if it's the same set list, you can't play the same song the same way once. There has to be dynamics. There has to be tension and release. And at some point, you have to leave the head of the tune and go out. And that's my definition of spiritual music. But I just know that like there's more than a fine line between, you know, going off stage and just sort of sitting there and getting ready for the second set, or, you know, doing what you need to do as a professional, versus like just having this smile on your face that you can't get off because you just had so much fun, but you don't even know what happened, you know?
Yeah, you know, that's a really good question, because that feeling, there's a few things that are popping into my head about it.
Yeah, just roll with it, yeah.
I had that feeling visited me yesterday afternoon when I was playing with, you know, with my friend Damien and with Micah Castles, another drummer here in Portland.
Oh man,
there's
such a monster scene out there, man. It's unreal.
Right. Well, I've been kind of having these little just backyard get together, right? And so, but anyway, I hit the zone. I hit the zone yesterday.
Oh, I love it.
A couple times, man, and I realized it in the moment, and it wasn't. And you know, as I was listening to you explain that, you know, yeah, there's got to be dynamics. Yeah, you've got to be in a band where everybody's truly, truly listening. What about the audience? You know, well, yeah, there's that too, and all of that can contribute maybe to the depth, duration of that, but ultimately, like, for me, I think I do achieve that very often these days, like getting to that, I don't know where it is, where the quiet mind or something.
In the silence.
Yeah. When you get into the silence of it,
oh my
and
God.
I think more than anything else, it's like it's more about it's lack of things to distract you from that. That can be in my own mind. Like if I can't quiet my own mind enough because I'm super agitated about whatever, that can be an impediment. But in all, I mean, that was one thing, you know, especially for me in the last 6 years, having this extraordinary experience of holding down a week at Terrapin every month, you know, is that I would get to set up, basically leave my stuff up for a week, and I'd play with every night different people, and you know, different band, different set list, different style, maybe acoustic, maybe electric, maybe mandolin or whatever. So it becomes this like, but all through that, it was like this opportunity to learn where that center like really was for me to be able to survive in that situation and more and excel, because my whole trip is like, is to integrate into what's happening, elevate it, and just amplify the whole thing.
Well, I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, did you? I'm curious about, like, because it was different people every night, and obviously you probably personally knew all the cats, but some better than others. Were you able to? I mean, I feel like Phil, the guy's was never a professional restaurant owner. I mean, he took a huge chance, and I tip my cap to him big time, because I think that, like, so many more cats that shall remain nameless should be doing the same thing he's doing in terms of opening up a venue for younger people to be able to play. Part of the reason the Grateful Dead even got off the ground was because of people like Chet Helms and the Family Dog and the Avalon, and they weren't even getting paid for that stuff, but they still were able to shed and play. And Phil got the memo on that, and he's he's well off enough to be able to open a venue. But he brought in all these I mean, dude, Grayboff and I mean, I'm just riffing off that, Pascal and Ross and yourself. I mean, what's so cool is that he made, and this is just I got hip to this later, because I wasn't really in it when it first started. I mean, he really brought in people, and you might not necessarily fall into this, but they weren't really like well versed in the Grateful Dead vernacular. They were really into all music or different kinds of music, or but there was improvisational flair within it, but they weren't like part of the Dark Star Orchestra, because how's the music really going to grow from there, and how are you supposed? So I mean, I guess the point is, in your mind, please put your ego aside. I mean, how do you mentor younger cats who are a lot more interested in getting parts? Today, a lot of people are judged, if that's the right word, on their competency of playing parts perfectly, playing something exactly the way it is on the record, if it's a cover song, or just perfection. And in my mind, imperfection is perfection. I mean, a wrong note or a flub or a chance can be a gateway to new musical vocabulary. And I just wonder how you try to mentor younger cats on the bandstand to be themselves and express themselves and not get too hung up on the formula trip, so to speak.
I'd never really. It's not conscious. I mean, it's hard to say. It's like, I think there was. I have only recently become aware of the concept that I'm older than other people.
That's a great. I mean, it's a fountain of youth, man. Fountain of youth.
So
no, I'm not, and I'm just saying, because you just have more wear and tear on the tires, more experience.
Yes.
I mean, to me, it's like there are cats. I'm not. We all know who they are, but they're just literally getting out of the box. And like you said, you look at them and say, what would I be doing right now if I was just starting out?
Exactly.
So I mean, like, I don't know. Maybe you don't focus on that, but the fact that you're basically up there, playing folk, vaudeville, funk, rock, blues, jazz. I mean, you're playing it all different every night, and there's different personalities. I just feel like one of the reasons you're there, even though you may be just realizing that you're a little bit older than people, is that you're one of the graybeards to help in the link in the chain for the music to move forward.
Yeah. I definitely started to see that, and I understood there was that was at work, and yeah, I think it's just, I mean, not setting out to mentor or lead, but just do your thing, and that's kind of been my. I mean, really, Phil is the one who really had the vision there, and for mixing things up and for encouraging people. I mean, like, yes, what you were saying, like, so many so out of the gate, people, they want to hear things the way they are used to hearing them, or you know, you think that people want to hear things the way they're used to hearing
Right,
them.
right, right.
And I know for myself, like I, I came to the guitar, I came to playing music really because of I mean, kind of directly, indirectly through my own sort of weird interpretation of what I thought the Grateful Dead was doing.
Of course. I mean,
And,
this is
and
fantastic.
Garcia
Yeah.
as like a conduit
A
to
conduit. Yeah, of course.
all of this stuff, right?
Ah,
So I don't know. It was like I just kind of figured, and for me, the thing that is most important really was the feeling and the approach, and that to me was the thing that's it's baked in, man. It's like we're playing spontaneously, and you are playing what you hear. And like you said before, it's a jazz mentality. I want to play what I hear, you
exactly.
know?
I love it. I freaking love it, man. It's so refreshing. I mean, is it fair to say? Because in the vibe that I was getting, and I saw live music on the road up through February, and it seemed to me that while nobody was exactly I mean nobody was getting like you know millions of dollars, but I felt like I think one of the biggest tragedies, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that the live music circuit was actually not perfect, but healthier than it had been in a long time. And then it just came to a halt. I mean, I'm not saying that people were walking home after road dogging it for weeks with a lot
Right.
of money, but there were gigs. There were a lot of venues, new venues. There were a lot of. I mean, people were on the road. They were playing. I mean, maybe they were scuffling still. It just seemed to me. I mean,
Yeah.
remember Demiola told me in our second interview. He's like, you know, the only way you can really make money is by playing live and by road dogging it. And he goes, thank God they haven't taken away. He said this 3 years ago. He said, thank God they haven't taken that away from us through some kind of lockdown, police lockdown. But now they have. And it's like, dude, they cannot. I mean, I am bound and determined to make sure that not just live music comes back, but that the playing field is more even than it was before. Because my worry is that it's going to be even more dog eat dog when we get on the other side of this. But was the circuit were there more gigs? Like things seem to be heating up a little bit. I maybe I was just wrong, but then all of a sudden it came to a direct stop.
Let me you just said dog eat dog.
Yeah.
I need to put my dog right outside the door.
Put the dog out there. Dog eat dog,
I'll be
dude.
right back.
Oh
I'll
yeah,
take
go.
you-
Yeah, take your time.
I
Take your
got
time.
it, man.
Yeah, talking to Scott Law here on the Jake Feinberg Show, and just cooking away here, talking about the realities of the new world and the new musical paradigm, and having jam sessions with people 20 feet apart, but still being able to access the zone. He's also been playing quite a bit at Terrapin Crossroads, which has been unfortunately shuttered for quite some time. You wonder how many independent music venues actually will be able to come back into the mix as well. How many will be able to survive economically? We can only hope that, but at the same time, I worry a little bit about, the guys that are already well recognized and household names and have barnstorm tours. They're not going to be affected. In fact, they're going to get more money than they've ever gotten in their lives. It's the unsung cats and it's the authentic cats and the creatives that are going to be left picking up the scraps, which is very disturbing for me. I mean, we can hope that maybe there's a change in administration. Do we have you back yet?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay,
I'm back.
good. Yeah. So, I mean, tell me if I'm right or wrong. Were you guys on a glide path at least? I mean, it seemed like you guys were playing so many freaking gigs before COVID.
Right. Well, one thing I think that's interesting, as we were talking, I mean, to that, and we were talking about how things have evolved. When you consider the '90s, and remember as the Grateful Dead slowed down, and stopped, how the festival boom happened.
Interesting. Yeah, but this is please. Yeah, that's so interesting. It's almost like
Yeah.
they were the flag, they were carrying the flag, and then when they stopped, the replacement for their insane tours was like the Horde Festival, or that was already kind of there, but like there were big festivals at that point.
Right. A lot of festivals grew, and there's been culling of that over the years. But I would say that for a bunch of us, the festival work has been strong,
Yes.
and that's been an important part of the recipe. And then venues. I mean, I've spent most of the last 6 years, I've been kind of centered. It's like Terrapin has sort of been my little grand old
The greatest
opera.
freaking place in the world, dude.
Right.
I could sit upstairs and the wait staff will let me sit up there and write poetry, and it's just so fucking great. I love it.
It's just amazing,
Yeah.
but it has been sort of my grand ole opry. It's like I got to make sure that I'm there. I got to be there for my week. So,
Bill Monroe, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
But definitely, I done a lot of, like we. It's like in the 90s, or in the 80s and 90s, you could make a cassette, buy a van, and get on the road. It seemed like while there wasn't the pool of resources necessarily wasn't growing that much larger, there was definitely a lot more people participating. More music for the people is a good thing. More music, more people making music. So, I mean, I think your perception is right. I can't really speak too much to the economics of it all because I wasn't like out there on the national club circuit the last 5-6 years quite so much.
Sure.
More regional.
Yeah, I'm not talking about like a Journey. My feeling is like Steve Miller, Journey, Tower of Power. I'm very close with guys in Tower of Power, and they're awesome guys, and they're entitled to make a good living. But I'm not those guys. My worry is that there's just going to be, we are again baby boomers. I mean, there's still so many of them. They refuse to leave stage left. They're causing so much angst and anxiety on so many different levels, on the legislative level, political level.
Mm-hmm.
And, let's face it. I mean, when 70, well, the bottom line is that first of all, I want to ask you a question. When you had a cassette tape in a van, how would you be able to create venues to play in? Would you just call up a venue? They'd be like, yeah, you can play. How did you get gigs when you had the cassette tape in the van?
Well, usually we had someone in the band who was kind of the booker person.
So you had product and you were able to market it.
Yeah. And we would. I mean, it all organically kind of grew, but that was back in the day when we had a mailing list that we had to lick stamps. And put postcards together.
Yeah, because actually it was really authentic fan base. It was it was a pain in the ass.
It was effective. It was effective.
Stanley Clark did it for Return to Forever. It was very effective.
Yeah. So I mean, these also were the days we read actual maps in the car in the van, and we would call. And in the afternoon, you'd have to call the club. You'd have to wait till someone would be at the club.
Right.
But you would always call,
Right.
and the guy or the gal would answer, and you say, "Hey, what's the best way? We're coming from the south. What's the best way to get there, or whatever?" And they'll give you the actual directions.
Exactly. Not the GPS direct. Yeah, no, I often wonder when I'm on the road, like, how would I ever find these places if I didn't have it? But you did. You figured it out. Well, I was thinking I have this endless well of interviews, and I was trying to boil it down, like the ethos of what I've been trying to do over the last 10 years, and I wanted to play you this audio clip and then have you come back and reflect on it in your own existence.
Okay.
I think that no matter what happens world-wise with business or whatever, however you want to, say it or call it, what we are as people, what we are as humans, never really changes. I mean, we all have a heart. It come from the spirit. You know, I think what happens is over a period of time or through culture and the cultural erosion and whatever you want to call it, our spirits and our souls get covered with a lot of complexity and a lot of garbage. You know, that what we are as people, what we are as humans, what we are as beings gets covered with a lot of trash. But what we are, in essence, is always there, because it has to be there, because that's what we are. So, you know, when something comes along, like something beautiful or something energetic or something that's inspiring, it rekindles that natural essence that's in all of us. And that's why you see different things happen at different times, you know, because people are made of love. People are made of hope. And if there's an opportunity for something that shows up that illustrates that, then it plugs that energy into people again. You know, so even though things look dark, or even though things look manipulated and whatever you want to call it right now, there's a lot of terminology.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what we are is infinite. What we are is always there.
Scott Law, that was, I could have done that interview yesterday. I did that interview in June of 2011 with decorated studio musician and a band leader in his own right, Ernie Watts. Fantastic, burning jazzer, but I mean, played multiple reed instruments and made his living. He's on every studio album, Steely Dan to Cannonball Adderley. And I wanted you to talk about this thing, this magic, this idea for Scott Law. Like, when I come to the studio today and I'm in a fog and, you know, and I'm trying to, you know, get rid of that trash or that stuff that shrouds me and just shrouds us every day, you know, plugging back into my natural essence is being able to be healed by cats like you or other healers that are doing it in different modalities. And I just wonder how if you can talk about, especially in a time like this, you know, being able to plug back in, you can call it resiliency, you can call it life force, but ultimately how you continue to cultivate your natural essence in your musical world.
Woo-hoo. Love it. That was an awesome quote.
Dude, I'm telling you, people are like, why are you so happy, man? I'm like, because I get to talk to cats like this every day. I mean, it's just like filling me with like, I'm just a container of love, man. It's unreal.
Yeah. Well, like I completely, that all really resonates for me. Like that thing where it's, you know, playing music, and hearing. This is one of the things that has kept me going as I've watched, you know, my path unfold, and you know, the gigs of any kind, you know, doesn't matter if I'm playing solo or the band. I mean, I haven't done a lot of solo gigging in my life, but I've definitely observed that, yeah, obviously this music brings people together, not because it's just it's noise and people are attracted by a noise or what. Or
it's sound. It's sound. Noise is not a good thing. Sound.
You know what I mean. But at its basis, but beyond that,
Right.
like when a song, like I mean, how many times have I experienced it myself? And I have to remind myself of that when I go and I hear music, even if I play music intentionally for myself on my stereo, or if I'm at a show and you know, how a song reconnects and reboots, and how music is this. It is a powerful language, and you know, like the realization that when musicians play, when politicians speak, a crowd gathers.
Sure.
When musicians play, a crowd gathers and they all start moving. That's power.
Yeah, it's almost bhakti like movement. It's a bhakti feel. Yeah, it's unreal.
Yeah, there's a power there, and so
Absolutely.
that speaks to what your interview, what Mr. Watts was saying there. I mean, it's like that connection, how it reconnects people, and it can be as trite as hey, that tune, I've always loved that tune. It really made my day, man. Or whatever.
Yeah.
It can be, or not as trite, but as simple as that. And so.
And then what he was saying was, and I think it's so cool because someone like yourself who's just, been on the bandstand so long, it's like, he goes, when something comes along that's magical or that is surprising or inspiring, that's what Garcia used to say. I remember, back when, the accessibility was outrageous. I remember listening to this insane radio interview with him, Donna Jean, and John Kahn from '78 in Rochester, and he's on a college, college University of Rochester radio station, and he's promoting Cats Down Under the Stars, and he's just like, man, he's like, he's like, we live for that one magical gig. You got 40 clunkers, but you get that one gig, and you realize why you're in it. For music, that's really. You hope you don't have 40 clunkers, but it's just, it's regenerative, it's rebirth, it's regeneration, it's shedding old skin, it's growing new skin. You sound like you're a sound seeker. That's what Charles Lloyd was. You're drunk. Are you drunk with sound all the time? How does sound come in and words? Does it come at you like in a deluge or in parts, or where do you come down on creation of music?
Well, I think about music pretty much all the time. And so,
yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
And that really hasn't changed. Hey, and you know what? Like, I'm fortunate. You asking earlier about just how you're kind of dealing with this time, the pandemic, and the locking down and all of that. And it's like, hey, one thing. I'm digging into some musical concepts and starting to understand some things about certain sounds, whatever scale or arpeggio sounds. Not go too deep in it, but things that like have been eluding me for.
Well, no, give me an example. Let's go deep on this. Yeah.
Like finally kind of starting to get a grip on where diminished sounds fit, and like understanding, and I have to be honest, like a lot of my point of reference is jazz. Like, not that I've ever been a jazz player necessarily,
but you've been listening to that. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I love jazz, and I love the freedom and the improvisation and the instrumental command that it requires. It is the music of improvisation, and which is what I'm in all of this for. And so, been kind of dealing with some things like that, like really understanding a few different forms of diminished sounds that actually I can use now. And just like little project things that have been, all of a sudden I've had the time to kind of unlock. I'm just trying to look at the good side.
No, listen, what I'm saying is what I love, you are part of this collective. Scott Patton is another name that comes to mind. There's so many cats where it's like, there's, for the most part, even though we're wandering with no roadmap because we have no leadership and things are going to get worse before they get better, just because of what's happening. You guys are it's carpe diem. I'm tapping into my Latin bag. It's like seize the day. Like, figure out what you can do to keep yourself mentally. To me, in the long run, Scott, first of all, we have to do part 2 next week. We barely even touched the surface today. But the thing is, what I worry about is you guys, a lot of you, the guys I talk to for the most part, especially you, and like you're pretty grounded. And even with this adversity, you're finding ways to look towards the light. And I worry about cats that don't have that resolve, that pretty much, you know, um, they've never faced this kind of adversity. And there's, this idea of, you know, I don't want anything to happen bad. My feeling with COVID is that in the long run, as bad as the virus is, and knock on wood, nobody gets sick from it, is that the mental health component of it is going to be much worse than the virus itself.
Oh, that's real, man.
And I want you to talk to your peers and to elders and to young, because I mean you're on fire, man. Like you're in a good spot. And I talk about perseverance, talk about overcoming, and talk about how you continue to stay buoyant and focused, not all the time, but give some inspiration to those cats whose world is incredibly dark now because they never saw this coming. Maybe they took it for granted and they're hurting right now.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I definitely have bad days, and I've definitely, and the first week was ugly, man. I was in a really ugly.
We need video of that first week, man. Get that video out there, man. People be like, yeah, I was doing the same thing, man.
I mean, really, like I think I was, yeah. But I guess things are not always as they appear, and a lot of times, I mean, your own how you frame it. The power is how you frame it. And I was, staring at my navel for a couple days too long, and then I went, all right, the only thing I can activate here is what I can activate. I know, and this all the way circles back to one of the first things that I said, when the going gets weird, man, I tend to just I bear back down on music and make goals. I made some musical goals, and then this streaming thing happened. And it was like, wait, people are streaming. And at that point, I was literally so pissed off at the situation. I was like, no way, I'm not, that ain't what it is.
That's not authentic. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
I mean, I was pretty sour, and then I was like, well, a couple days went by, and Sam Grisman was living in the house.
Oh God, dude, say it, please, dude. I love that cat, man.
Yeah, he's not living here anymore, but we had a great run in the beginning of the pandemic.
Dude, what a nasty upright player, man.
Oh man, he's wonderful, and we've been friends and pals for a long time. So that was cool. But we both were in a funk, and they were like, you know what? Everyone's streaming. Let's get on the front end of this. And so we started doing it. And I'll tell you, that has been a very interesting pathway. And there's a lot that is unfolded from that in terms of my own process and observing myself playing solo, which is not my comfort zone. And what I'm doing right now is on the live streams are every Monday on Deadheadland's Facebook page. That's pretty much what I've been just kind of ramping back on, is just kind of doing those for now. But I play solo for an hour and I improvise, and I do the best I can each week, curating a new batch of tunes, and I'm not repeating any cover tunes yet. So I can repeat, the ground rules are I can repeat my my own originals because they need work and I want to get them in people's ears. And then just I view the part of the mission here during this time is to soothe. And there's a nice little group of people that just keep showing up for those streams, and I feel like I'm doing something good for the community, just playing some songs folks want to hear, digging up and curating tunes that I know people will want to hear that maybe they forgot about because I did. Things like that.
I mean, let's just get. I got a back-to-backer today, but let's do part 2 immediately, man. It is so cathartic to be able to hang with you, and we got to go deeper.
Love to, Jake. I would love to do that, and give my best to Chris when you talk to him.
Yeah, I will, man. Much love to you, Scott, and
right.
we'll set it up part 2, man. Thank you for hanging.
Okay, sounds good, Jake. You take care.
All right, man. Peace.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye. We'll be back with Chris Jacobs right after this.
Needs. And it would be better to earn your way in. That's the way I feel about it.